Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. The focus of this series is on structured query language, SQLs. In my previous video, I looked at the different ways you can use the select from statement. In this video, my primary focus is on the where clause that is used in the select statement. As I've explained previously, the select statement is used to display data from a table, and this was the compulsory part of the select statement, which was covered in my previous video. If you would like to find out more information about this, please refer to that particular video. Here, I will primarily focus on the where statement or the where clause. This is optional, and we generally use the where clause whenever we are wanting to restrict information. The where clause is or contains a condition, and in the next few slides, we will focus a lot on the types of conditions you can have when writing it up. We will focus on how to restrict numeric data in the where clause. We'll also look at how to restrict strings, how to work with dates and booleans. Then some attention will be given to the like operator. Thereafter, we will look at compound conditions. Compound, those are multiple conditions. And finally, we will conclude by using the in and between operators in the where clause of your select. So let's go. As I indicated, the where clause of your select statement contains a condition. Everything is based on a condition. So let's first try to understand how the condition works. We've been exposed to conditions in Delphi previously. You use a condition in an if statement. You also use conditions in a while loop. For example, you would say if num is greater than 10. So this would be a typical condition that you would use in Delphi. And that condition would either evaluate to true or to false, because that's what conditions do. They evaluate either to true or false. And if it was true, you would do a particular statement. If it was false, you would then go to the else part. That's how it worked in Delphi. Another typical condition that we would use if you had a string variable, if name equals Winnie. And take note that in Delphi, that when we used strings, we made use of single quotes. That's how we were able to reference our strings in Delphi. Let's look at how we make use of conditions, and in particular strings, in SQL. Well, the first point is that your conditions are exactly written in the same way as you would have written them in Delphi. So there's no change to writing a condition in Delphi versus writing a condition in your SQL, in the where clause of your SQL. And you will notice in SQLs as well, we can make use of the single quotes when working with strings. But we can also make use of the double quotes when we are working with strings. And when we are now going to work with our SQL statements, in particular, we are going to make use of double quotes. Let me tell you why we are going to use this particular option. When we take our SQL statement and apply it into Delphi, this is some of the code that we will be making use of. In particular, the code is going to be applied in this way, where this particular object uses a parameter called add, and that parameter is of type string. Now, because that parameter is of type string, we have to enclose it inside of single quotes. So if we're using single quotes for the parameter, then we need to distinguish between the quotes that are used in the parameter and the quotes that are used when we are referring to our string. So to differentiate the two in Delphi, we're going to make use of double quotes. So just take note of that. In subsequent slides, every time I refer to a string in the where clause, I will enclose it inside of double quotes, and you should understand the reasoning why this is being done. Let's look at how we work with dates. If you recall from the previous video, we had a table called TBL actors, and one of the fields was date of birth. So if you have a field that's of type date, you have to ensure that when referring to the date must be enclosed between a hash. That's one of the rules that we'll use when working with SQLs. A Boolean is true or false. It works in the same way as we would do in Delphi. And then all of these operators are available to us. We can check if something is equal to, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, and you can also check not equal to. Another operator that's worth looking at is the like operator. We know that when we use the equal to, we are looking for an exact match. That's how the equal to operator works. We're looking for an exact match. But sometimes we may not want an exact match. We want something that is similar. So in SQL, we can make use of the like operator, which allows us to look for patterns. We're looking for certain patterns, and these patterns could be similar to certain patterns that we are looking for. Let's look at more examples, and this will become clearer in terms of how it is used in those examples. But before we get to the examples, you should understand that when you use the like operator, there are two wildcards. There are two wildcards that are important. The first wildcard that we use with the like statement is a percentage. And a percentage could refer to 0, 1, or many characters. And we can use the underscore, not to be confused with the hyphen. This is an underscore. And when we refer to the underscore, that just represents a single character. Now, take note that these two wildcards are what you would use when you are writing your SQL statements and you are using them in Delphi. The same SQL statement can be run in Microsoft Access. So if you are running the same SQL statement in Microsoft Access, instead of using the percentage sign, which is what we use in Delphi, in Microsoft Access, you will use a star. And instead of using the underscore, in Microsoft Access, you will use the question mark. So these are just some subtle changes that you need to be aware of depending on what program you are working with. Also take note that the like operator is used whenever we are working with a particular field that is of type string. And remember that from the previous slide, all our strings, we're going to be working with them being in double quotes. So now let's look at some examples. In all of these examples, you will only see the where part or the where clause of your SQL, but understand that this where clause is going to fit into a select from. So if we had to say where actor name like A, and then we have the wildcard percentage. So this means that we're looking for some actor name that starts with the letter A, and then percentage means you can have one or more characters thereafter. Multiple characters can be used thereafter. So this will return all actor names starting with the letter A. Similarly, if you use the wildcard percentage and then you use a E, that will now return your actor names that end with the E. So the E is at the end of the actor name and anything can be in front of it. We could also have an example where we have a percentage with ION. That simply means it's ending with ION and anything before. Here is a wildcard where we're using the underscore. And remember that the underscore refers to a single character while the percentage was multiple characters. So this pattern is saying that the first character can be anything. The second character must contain the letter I, and thereafter you could have any other characters that could follow. But the second character in particular must be the letter I. So if we had to use a wildcard in that instance, it would pick up an actor name with Winnie, for example, because Winnie starts the second character with the letter I. In this particular example, we are stating that it must start with the letter A. It then has any other character, one other character, and thereafter anything can follow. What that tells us is that the actor name should start with an A and it must have at least two characters. You need to have at least two characters. Here, you may not see this very clearly, but there are two underscores, which means it's similar to the previous one, but it must have at least a length of 3 characters. And then the final example, it tells you it wants to start with an A, it's ending with an O, and anything in between. So that is a different type of pattern. So these are just some of the examples in terms of how you would go about using the various patterns when you are writing, when you're using the like statement in your where clause. Let us now focus on how to use compound expression. So if we are referring to compound, compound means more than one expression or condition, more than one condition. So whenever we use more than one condition, for example, we could say num greater than 10, then we say and name equals Winnie. This is how you would write a compound statement in Delphi. You will notice I'm making use of the single quotes. So here I am, this is how I would write my statements in Delphi. So there's 2 separate conditions, and we join the conditions using the AND operator. You could use different operators, either the AND, you could have a OR, you could also have a NOT. And each of these operators have priority. Just like when we perform arithmetic, you've got plus, minus, times, division. And when we perform this type of arithmetic, we follow the rules of BODMAS. So similarly, when we are using these operators, there's priority as well. First, you'll work out brackets, then you'll do the NOT first, followed by the AND, and then the OR. So if we look at this particular example, I've got a particular condition, I've got a second condition, and then a third condition, and these are all joined using these operators. So according to our priority, we know that you have to first perform this part because the AND has higher priority. So you'll take condition 2 and condition 3. That will evaluate to either a true or a false, because that's what conditions do. So here you'll get an answer let's say the answer was true, you will then take condition 1, evaluate that, which will also then evaluate to true or false. And let's assume that was false. You will then take false or true, and that will then give you a final answer of true. So this is how you would apply your priority when working with conditions that have multiple operators. In the second example, you've got condition 1 or condition 2 and condition 3, similar to the previous one, except that we have brackets. And as you know, brackets always takes priority, in which case you will then evaluate the bracket. You'll get a true or false answer, take that, and you'll end it to the result of the condition 3 that you get. So keep in mind how multiple conditions work.